Hi everyone, I'm Heather. I work at Always Knitting and Sewing in Chorley, and I also have my own Etsy shop called Woolly Elephant. So you might already know me as Woolly Elephant Mum, that's my Instagram name. And our shop's called Woolly Elephant. We have closed the shop for a while at the moment because with all the Royal Mail strikes that have been going on, it wasn't worth the headache of whether parcels would go astray or not, or they'd be sat in sorting offices and not get there. Hand-dyed yarn takes a long time to make, and it's unique. So I can't. It's not something I can repeat. Even though I haven't dyed any for a long time, I do have quite a lot in the shop, and it's not something I can replace if it goes astray. So the shop has been closed for a while. I'm going to do a bit of a good stock take before I reopen it and maybe make some new project bags and things like that. So if you've met me before, you'll know I used to do this with my daughter, Nicola, but we're finding it so hard to get together at the moment that I thought I would do this by myself. Our schedules just clash so much, what with the kids, my grandkids, her children at school. Her working hours have changed and her husband's working hours have changed. I'm so busy, either we work during the day and tutorials in the evening, filming tutorials. Life just got in the way. So I find that this is a lot easier. I'm just going to try and give it a go by myself, because then I can just do one when I get the time. So apologies for the plain face today. I just thought I'd do this at a last minute's notice. Thought if I don't do it now, I never will. So here I am. So you might have seen me on the Always Knitting and Sewing Facebook Live, which we hold every Thursday at 12 o'clock. Have a good laugh and show you a lot of new products that we already have in the shop, projects that we've been making, and keep you up to date with the things that are going on at the shop and answer your questions live. So you may have already met me over there. If not, and you want to see a little bit more, then you can see me host that with Chloe 12 o'clock every Thursday on Facebook, Always Knitting and Sewing Facebook page. So I thought I would just show you through a few of the things that I've been up to lately. I can keep you updated on here of classes that I may be going to film on for tutorials. My sewing tutorials mainly are on the Always Knitting and Sewing Knit and Stitch Club, which is a subscription site where you pay $7.99 a month and you have access to over 150 tutorials on making basically mostly accessories, sewing accessories, and then there's crochet, there's a little bit of knitting. We're hoping to increase that in the future. It's only been going for about a year and a half, and it's doing great, and there's a few of us all teaching. Mostly I teach sewing, and then there's Sam from Sew Let Sparkle on Facebook. She does sewing tutorials as well. There's Lisa Lamb from Lamtastic, is the main crochet tutor. We have Donna that's taught crochet lessons on there as well, and Amanda that works at Always Knitting and Sewing is just joining the team for making her own patterns and videos for crochet. And Chloe, she mainly does patchwork. She does little accessories as well, but she's been running a block of the month over the last year, just doing the last one, and then she'll show you how to put it all together. So it's quite exciting, and it's to be a member of that team. I've only been sewing for about 3 years, so it's great to be able to show you all what I've learned. A lot of the classes are geared towards beginners and intermediate, so even as a beginner, we hold your hand all the way through. I teach you where in my classes I give you as many hints and tips to learn how to do these things as you go along. So if you want to see a little bit more, I'll put a link down below. First month's only £1. You can try it out for £1, see if it's for you. If not, you could just cancel it. It's really easy to cancel. We don't hide it anywhere. You don't have to jump through a million hoops to cancel it. if you find it's not for you. But there is a lot on there to try, and we've had some amazing feedback. I've had some amazing feedback about my classes, and it's really, really inspiring to get that feedback back to keep me making more classes. So on here as well, I can keep you up to date with not only what I do over there, but I can keep you up to date with just general things that I make for myself as well. I can show you how to do a few things on here. Just let me know down below in the description below what you would like from me. There is, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell, and then you will hear automatically when I, I have two cats in here with me. They will probably make appearances, maybe not in this show because they're both sound asleep at the moment. But in future ones, I can guarantee, almost guarantee, wherever I am, or my husband is, the cats are, they follow us everywhere. If you want to follow me on the social medias, I'm on Facebook as Woolly Elephant, along with my daughter. That's our Facebook page for our Etsy shop. I've also, on Instagram, I am Woolly Elephant Mum, because she's a Woolly Elephant daughter. So I'm Woolly Elephant Mum, that's my main page. I show all my crafting things that I've made on there, so if you're interested in things I've been making over the years, you can go back and look on there. That's Woolly Elephant Mum. And so if you're interested in what goes on with my cats, we have two Maine Coon kittens. Obviously people are quite interested in on how they're coming along and growing, and because they're a really large cat. They're now nearly 8 months old, and they're as big as bigger than your regular adult cat. So people like seeing their comings and goings, and they are likely to appear in the videos as well. They occasionally appear briefly in a video tutorial even, but they're both asleep right at the moment, so you probably won't see them today. So that is Birkin 196 Maine Coon UK. A long name. It used to be my personal one. I just added Maine Coon into the title, so I only post things to do with the cats under that Instagram name. So if you're interested in that. So what do I do? If you haven't met me before, I've always been a knitter more than anything. I've always knit for as long as I can remember. I've tried many other crafts. I was very much into cross stitch one time over, and I've been through phases of cake making and crochet and weaving, all sorts of different things. My first love is knitting, but in the last 3 years I picked up sewing, and I've never looked back really. So much so I've got a regular sewing machine, and as you can see back here I also have an industrial sewing machine because I like to sew handbags when I get the time. And that is brilliant for doing that. Anything I can sew on that machine, I'll sew on that machine, but I don't use that one in my tutorials. I use my regular sewing machine, which is a Dukit DX7, which is a brilliant, good all-rounder machine, which can pretty much sew through most things as well. Anyway, so I started sewing about 3 years ago, and 2.5 years ago I started working at Always Knitting and Sewing at my local fabric shop. Just after the first lockdown lifted, and I've never looked back since. And I now film sewing tutorials for accessories and little things like that, because that's become my passion these days. And I can teach you. I've watched loads and loads and loads of videos and tutorials and read books, and I've learned an awful lot along the way. So in those two tutorials, I try and give you as many hints and tips that I've learned along the way and pass them on to you. So the latest tutorial of mine to hit the site is this little mobile phone stand, which is great. So you can sit your phone on top of there to watch your video, to watch your little sewing tutorials. Or to watch telly while you're doing your regular sewing or whatever you use your phone for. It will hold a small tablet as well, which is really good. A few people have tried it with the smaller iPads, and it sits on there quite nicely. So there's my smaller tablet. That sits on there quite nicely, and doesn't slide off. I mean, I'm holding it in midair at the moment, so, but it does sit on there quite nicely. So you can watch your sewing tutorials on there, or your knitting tutorials, or your YouTube, or whatever you do. And it's quite an easy make. Take you through it step by step. I do have a few little sewing tutorials on here as well, but on the ones on the subscription site, obviously go into detail quite a bit more on how to make these things and how to make it easier for yourself. So that's the latest one I've got on. So another one that I've just filmed that will be arriving there later is this little pyramid pouch. I really like these, and these are made with squares, so you can make them any size you want with whatever size square that you want. So this is the size that I've made in the video. They hold more than you think. This size is great for putting your phone chargers and things in, and they sit quite well, sit flat and stand up on your table, which is really nice as well. Also, if you make it in a bigger size, I find this size quite good. Put your handle a bit longer so it goes through your wrist. If you like sock knitting like me, you do a lot of knitting, but you don't want to be sat down all the time. You can put your ball of wool in there, have it coming out the top of the zip, and you can do your socks while you're walking around. I used to do that quite a lot before I started work I am now, because I was conscious of being sat down all the time. So you can put your wool in there and you can be carrying it around with you and working on your sock knitting while you're moving around. If you haven't tried it, it's definitely worth giving a go. Better for your health all round, really. Knitting on the go. And I know a lot of people like to take the knitting, especially sock knitting, out and about with them. If you're going to the doctors and you're going to be sat waiting in the waiting room, if you're on the train or if you're a passenger in the car, it all passes the time. So that's a great one for putting your little knitting projects in and taking them with you. And there's an even bigger size. It's great with them being tall because you could stand bottles up of makeup or things inside them as well, which is quite good. These were made in the Liberty, from a Liberty fat quarter bundle. Do quite a lot of makes where you can use fat quarter bundles with those. So Always Knitting Sewing, we also do a subscription box, and I've filmed quite a lot of the videos for the subscription boxes. One of the last ones I did was for the boxed corner pouch, the box pouch, which has been really popular, this one. I added in an extra panel along the top and added some fancy stitches in, because who doesn't use the stitches? I bet most people don't use a lot of the fancy stitches a lot of the time, and yet you have so many on your machine, which made this look, you know, you can tailor it, made it look really nice. You can tailor it to the project. I also used lightweight interfacing in this one, because if you're going to put, again, you could put a small knitting project or a crochet project in this to shove in your handbag. Or if you're putting your makeup in there, with it being lightweight, it'll squash down into your handbag quite well, even with things in it. If you want it sturdier, you can obviously put a heavier weight interfacing in it, or some Bosal foam, and it'll spring back up. In fact, I've got 2 more of those in different interfacings I can show you. Now, this is the one. This is made with Decaville Light, so this one is quite sturdy. This is the fabric that I use in the tutorial, and make one this size. But this one is a little one, and I've used Decaville Light in this one, which is like a leathery-like interfacing. So it made it quite hard work to turn it through, but makes for a lovely little sturdy box. I really like this one. So that's just a smaller one. And then I also made one with using Bosal foam. Just got that here. Just with Bosal foam, this one. Now this is the same size as this one, just shorter. It's the same height and everything. You just shorten it a couple of inches to make it shorter. And in this one, I keep my mini iron in that one, in the foam one, and that freestands as well. I just recommend, maybe if you might find it easier if your sewing machine struggles with thick seams, to leave the Bosal out of the seams. Maybe just quilt it in. You could always quilt it in. So there you go. And they've got these. I've put these little silver love heart zip pulls on these ones. This was a former fabric. These these ones. These were from a former subscription box fabric. But I put these little zip pulls on with the love hearts on. And I get those from a company called Zipper Station. I buy a lot of my zips from there as well. Zip on a roll I tend to buy. So it's zip by the metre, so you can cut it to the length you want, and then you buy your zip pulls separately. So that's for that one. This is one I made when I first started sewing and I had a go. This is one of the ones I made originally. Now, whereas those ones I've just showed you are fully lined, this one's not. I was having a go at free motion quilting a couple of years ago when I first made this one. And this one's all raw edges inside. There's no lining. Well, there is another colour fabric on the inside, but there's no line. You don't see any raw edges on the one in the video. But it's really cute, that one, because it's got knitting cats all over it. And like I say, I was learning when I made this one about free motion quilting. So they are dead useful boxes. I've got keep all my lace in that one. So, you know, you can never have too many pouches. You can put something in every one. I've got one with lace in. I've one with ribbons in. One with draw cords in for my drawstring bags. I've got one with bag handles in. Make a pouch for everything. See this one? This is the one for all my other cords, all my other tech cables and things that I keep in this one. I love this fabric. This is one I made some time ago. This is Timeless Treasures fabric, this one. With the owls. I love the eyes on these owls. They look really quite striking. But that one's with a medium weight interfacing, so that one stands up on its own as well. And like I say, I keep all my tech cables in there because there's so many things that you need cables for these days. It's best if you keep them all in one place. So the next one that's on my table, I'm going to try and make a video if I get time tonight. Today is Sunday, the 15th of January. What happened to Christmas? That seems like 2 minutes ago. We're already halfway through January. So this is the next one on my table. This is just a little quick sample that I made. This is a mug rug. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And I'm going to make it in plainer colours like these. This is a fat quarter bundle called Fleur. I got this at work at Always Knitting and Sewing. So I'm going to make it in these different fabrics. So the plainer, and then where I've done stitching here in straight lines, I'm going to use a fancier stitch here, so it should stand out quite well against the plainer fabrics, and make my own binding. Instead of this, I just had this little bit of pre-made binding. I don't really like it very much on here, so I'm going to make my own binding for the one for the class. So I'm hopefully going to get that done tonight. I've been doing all the cutting out for that. Oh, on the pyramid pouches before, I don't think I showed you, if you use your little charm squares, it's great for making one. Put a little lobster claw to hang on your bag or hang on your belt loop, that you could keep your AirPods in, or your regular earphones, your little chargers, or some money, or your lipstick, just the little bits you want to take out with you without having to take your bag or your purse. You could even probably put your debit card in there. So that's just made with little charm squares, 5-inch squares. So I think that's mainly the sewing that I'm going to show you today. I've also got a couple of knitting projects on the go. So I like to do socks. Over the years, over the other videos we've done in the past, I've shown many socks. This is the latest. Latest one I'm doing. Don't get a chance to do as many as I used to do, but I have got quite a few pairs wearing out, so I need a few more. These are all different socks I've knitted in the past. These are all the leftovers, because you usually end up with some leftover. And trying to find projects for them, well, I like to do scrappy socks. So I've used 6 different colours in that one. I think this one's my favourite, this one. I love the socks made in those. And then there's a self-striping pastel one here. This one was from a jumper. Self-striping sock yarn that I did. That's very time consuming to dye, is self-striping. It takes a long time to get those stripes in the fabric, in the yarn. This was some like trainer socks I made. I can't remember what I used this one for, but a little bit left over from that one. So that's one sock, and then I am knitting them magic loop. Not my favoured way, I've got to admit. I seem to knit more with these days, but it's still not my preferred way to knit socks. I like to use double pointed needles, because when you're doing the heels on these, I've got 2 loops sticking out the sides, and you really need, if you're going to do that, a longer needle. These are knitted on an 80cm long needle. 100cm is easier. I can do them on 80, which is what I'm doing, but 100 is easier. They're great for knitting this part, and for knitting down the foot, I just found them a little bit fiddly, a little bit more awkward for knitting the turning the heel and knitting the gusset, because you're having to pull these 2 loops out the sides, which I just find a bit fiddly. So, but you can easily do it once you know what you're doing. I just get fed up with all the pulling backwards and forwards of the needles, pulling one out, one in, pushing one in every time. I just find it easy to go round and round with your double pointed needles. But I know a lot of people prefer to do it this way. So there you go. These are higher sharps I'm knitting these on. 2.25mm needles. Gives you a nice tight tension. If you do your tension on your socks on a bigger needle, they can be slightly more open and you can feel it more under your foot. They're also not as hard wearing if they're not tightly knit. You need socks to be quite tightly knit, and you need them to have a bit of negative ease in them. You don't want them to be, if you measure your leg it round and it measures say 9 inches, 10 inches, you want them to be smaller than that, so they have to stretch to fit to your foot. Because if they stretch as you walk in them, so they can go baggy on your feet, so you do need them to be a really snug fit. So there we go. So they're being kept in my little drawstring bag. Made this with a fat quarter bundle. This will be a class in the future. And then another knitting project. I'm knitting a jumper for one of my grandsons. Whichever grandson it'll be whoever it fits when the time comes, because it's taking me a lot longer to knit than it used to do, because I'm spending time filming tutorials for you all. So this one has got a cable pattern, a simple wavy cable pattern, and it's all over, so it does take quite a lot longer to do, but because you're doing the same one over and over again, it's quite easy to remember as well. So it's not too bad, but I started off with the idea of knitting it for my eldest grandson, who's 7, but if it takes me a long time to knit it, then by the time I've done it, it'll fit the 5-year-old grandson, because my 7-year-old seems to be shooting up like crazy at the moment. This is knitted in King Cole Cherish, which is a baby double knitting. I did get this from work. I don't think we're any longer stocking it because we've changed the range of the yarns. But it looks lovely, and Amanda at work, she's crocheted herself a cardigan in this, and it looks fabulous. So it's not just for babies or children. I'm also knitting them on my regular bamboo needles. I've tucked to lately, I do most of my knitting on circular needles, because I find that a lot easier. Plus, with having 2 Maine Coon kittens, when this is waggling around when you're knitting, all they want to do is chase it. They're waking up, I think, is chase it and try and bite it. So it's a lot easier for me to knit on circular needles, because you can do all your straight knitting on circular needles just like you can on the straight ones. So that jumper, let me just find the pattern. This is called the Burbeck jumper, and it's a wavy cable jumper. There's the picture. You can see it better in the plain yarn. Looks really good. And that's by Jane Ellison from Pearl and Jane. I don't think she sells this book anymore, but I think she does sell all the patterns individually. These are some of the nicest patterns I've ever knitted for kids. In my previous videos, you'll see me mentioning this quite a few times. And then the last knitting project I'm going to show you, we did at work the Christmas Eve craft on. It was hashtag Christmas Eve craft on. You normally see Christmas Eve cast on for knitters. But because I work in a knitting and sewing shop, and there's people that card make and things that watch us as well, so we changed it to knit Christmas Eve craft on so that you could do it for whatever craft that you do. So the idea was you would, on Christmas Eve, during all the crazy, when you're wrapping presents and trying to get everything ready, that you just stop and sit down for something like 15 minutes to an hour, take a bit of time for yourself and chill out, take a break and cast on what is going to be your next project. Or cut out, if you were going to sew a pattern, cut out your pattern or pin it to your fabric, or do something towards getting ready for your next project. And quite a few people joined in. It was quite nice, with knitting, sewing, crochet, and some people finished them really quick. I mean, mine is going to take me quite a bit longer, but I'm not worried about that. This was mine. I cast on a shawl. Now, I would have got further, but I've pulled it back 2 or 3 times because while I have been knitting this, I've been watching I was watching season 6 of Game of Thrones. I have the box set for all the Game of Thrones, and I was watching season 6, and I think season 6 is where it starts getting really good. Season 6, 7 and 8, I think, were the best seasons, and I kept making mistakes, and it is lace knitting, a lacy pattern, and I kept going wrong and having to pull it back. Anyway, I stopped, put it down, stopped watching the programme for a minute, made sure I got it right. And I think it's looking really good. And this is knitted in some quite luxury yarns. This one is knitted in something called Suri. And then a couple of the others, the colours that I'm going to be doing in with it. These 3 here are by a company called Tall Yarns. You can see the sheen on them. And I think they are 50% silk, 50% yak. Yak is super, super soft. I've been collecting a lot of hand-dyed yarns for a while. As well as I dyed my own. These are all ones that I've been collecting from when I went to shows. And it's about time I made something with them. And all these colours go together nice. This was another one I'm going to put in. This was by a company called Stranded Dye Works. It was called Industrial Kingfisher. I'd been trying to get this colourway for such a long time, and I eventually did. Last year I knitted my son-in-law pair of socks in it, and then this ball I'm using to put into this shawl, and it ties all the colours together. So this might take me a while, hopefully not too long. But it's called the Inara wrap, and this is it. So there we go. So you can see the lacy pattern in here. So what I was thinking of doing, because there's quite a lot of lace in here, so I don't have to concentrate quite so hard, I might only put that lace pattern into every other panel. And then when I'm not watching something I really want to watch on the telly, when I'm with my husband and he's watching something, I'll knit the lacy panel. And when I'm watching something I want to really watch, I can knit the plain one. I thought that might be a good way to go, so I'm not constantly making mistakes in the lace, and it'll make it a little bit quicker. So I'm trying to get that to focus in. Doesn't seem to. There we go. So these here, I might lacy one, and then I'll do the next one plain, I think, and then the next one lacy, and so on. This was done with gradient yarn, so it shades. So mine's not quite going to be a gradient, but the colours should all go together really well. And I'm looking forward to being able to wear that. I'm hoping to get it done before winter's over. There's like, it shows you 3 different lengths in the pattern. And I think I'm going to do, because I've got plenty of wool. There we go. I'm going to do, I think, the longest one, because then I can tie it nicely, like it's tied here. I do like to knit a shawl or a wrap. This one is going to feel very luxurious. Maybe only come out for special occasions, because it's going to have cost quite a lot in yarn to knit it. But I do have a lot of this yarn just sitting around doing nothing, looking too pretty to knit, so it's time I got some of them done. So anyway, I think that's everything that I'm going to show you for today. So I hope you can join me again in the future. I'll leave any links that you need to know in the description box down below. I'd appreciate it if you could hit subscribe and hit like, so that YouTube know that you like me and you want to watch more videos in the future. Hopefully I might be able to give little demos and things like that in the future, and hopefully might be able to film occasionally a free video to put on here. So until next time, happy crafting. Bye.